The 2023 NFL Combine is in the books, but what it jump-started for the Chicago Bears is all the trade speculation with the number one overall pick. The Chicago Bears are officially in their rightful place as the kings of the offseason, and it always starts and ends with the NFL draft. So on today's Bears Talk, of course, we're bringing back our good buddy, a friend of the show, and USA Today's NFL draft expert, Luke Easterling, to go through some of the combine risers who could end up becoming Chicago Bears once the April NFL draft rolls around. And of course, Bears fans, what better time than do a post-combine mock draft than right now on Bears Talk?
We're going to be an effort-based team.
Darnell being Darnell.
Love playing football.
Ready to open this thing up. Let them know that we're coming.
Before we bring Luke into the show, Bears fans, Bears talkers, the faithful Bears talkers out there, thank you all for subscribing to this channel. And if you're watching this and you're a Chicago Bears fan and you're consuming all of this wonderful goodness that we do here on Bears Talk and you haven't subscribed yet, why not join the movement? Join the almost 1,200 other subscribers who have already jumped on board. We hit the 1,000 subscriber milestone, and now we're aiming big. We want 10,000 subscribers on this channel, and it starts with you. And if you're already subscribed, tell a friend or two. Tell a fellow Bears fan who may not have found us yet to check us out and hit that subscribe button. And I'm going to give you another reason why you should subscribe, because we have guests like the great Luke Easterling, who you can follow on Twitter at Luke Easterling, and you can catch all of his elite first-round level NFL draft work at draftwire.com. He's USA Today's go-to guy for all things NFL draft. We're lucky to have him again. Luke, the Combine is in the books. This is your Christmas season now, the sprint from the Combine to the first round. How are you enjoying this time, my friend?
I'm loving it, man. I thought you were going to say first round grade there for a second. You missed
That was the old shout out.
You missed the callback, the throwback, right, for the first round grade. No, I'm doing great, man. Like you said, this is the part of the marathon that turns into the sprint, right? We're getting down to the home stretch here. We got pro days and top 30 visits, and that's really it before the draft. So that's not it from the NFL standpoint. We got free agency, we got franchise tags, we got so much stuff that's going to happen in the coming weeks. But what an exciting time to be a Chicago Bears fan right now, man. You got the number one pick. You got Justin Fields, your franchise quarterback. You got $100 million in cap space. You guys own the offseason right now. It's going to be fantastic. So much fun to be a Bears fan over the next 6 weeks.
And everything that could have went right for the Chicago Bears at the NFL Scouting Combine went right. And specifically, the most important shoe to drop for the Bears with this number one pick is that the quarterbacks had to perform like number one pick worthy players. And not only did we see one, but maybe two or even three, even if you count Bryce Young's measurement in the mix. The fact that he didn't measure in too small. He wasn't big at 5'10" and 204 pounds, but he wasn't too small either to be the number one pick. So between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud flashing elite accuracy on his on-field drills, Will Levis showing off his cannon of an arm, and the absolute alien of the bunch, Anthony Richardson, looking like the next gen Cam Newton with some of his literally historic combine testing results. How do you think this changes the value of the number one pick and the leverage it gives Ryan Poles now that there's multiple quarterbacks in a draft class that these front offices are not going to have the same pecking order in terms of the top or fourth or the second or third quarterback on their rankings, probably creating that anxiety and desperation to trade up. The fact that all four of these guys played and looked the part at the NFL Combine, what do you think this does for the Bears, and how do you think it will ultimately impact what they get for the number one pick?
Yeah, I think it's huge, obviously, and again, when you have all four quarterbacks, it's not even. I wouldn't even say that we learned anything new about any of those guys. What they did was confirm what we already kind of expected and hoped, but to like the greatest degree, right? I think that there's nothing that happened. Even Bryce Young's measurements, like you said, we all knew he was probably shorter than 6 foot. He was, but it's not terrible. And he came in at 204, which was, 9 pounds more than he was listed at. He didn't throw or do any drills. He'll do that at the pro day. But, other than that, there's really no concerns in his game whatsoever. So he's still in the number one overall conversation, right? Then you talk about CJ Stroud. Again, exactly what we expected because it's exactly what we saw on film. Just polished, great poise in no matter what throw, just effortless, right? Looks completely calm and collected back there. That's a high pressure situation. The combine is, right? You got to deliver. I know it's not a game situation. It's not actual real football, but it's still a pressure situation. And to see him deliver and just look like he was out in the backyard throwing it with some buddies. I mean, that's what you want to see from a quarterback. And again, what we expected from Stroud. Levis the same way. We expected him to sling it around and show a rocket arm that he could wake up at 3 a.m. and just throw it faster than most people, and that's what he did. That's what he can do. No real surprise there. Richardson, I think, is the guy that we all knew he was a ridiculous athlete. Not sure we all knew he was that guy, right? He was like, okay, like he went from, because of the upside, he's got to be a top 10 pick because that guy doesn't last. That performance is like, if somebody trades up to number 1 and takes him, I don't think anybody can be shocked after what he did because he's just that rare of a player, man. So when you have 4 quarterbacks who, if they went number 1, nobody would really be shocked or surprised, that means you're in a great spot if you're picking number 1 and you don't need any of those guys because you can pit. And again, it's you got to have 2 to tango, right? You got to have trade partners. The Bears have plenty, and they can leverage them against one another, right? In the top 5, you get 2 teams from the same division. You and I have talked about this before. The Colts and the Texans will have their own battle to try to get to number 1. If the Bears are willing to drop back even further than that, you've got the Raiders at 7. You've got Carolina at 9. I really don't think the Falcons will be involved in that. But so many options that the Bears can Ryan Poles can just sit back and say, hey, come to me. What are you going to do to beat those other 3 teams in the offer? And again, the further back they have to drop, the more that team is going to have to give up to make that jump. So, it's just a fantastic position for Ryan Poles to be in. Again, you got Justin Fields. You've already got your guy. You got so much cap space to fill all your biggest needs. You're going to go into this draft really being able to do whatever you want. You take the best deal. And again, teams aren't going to be able to be patient here. Okay. They're going to leverage this and say, hey, you want to get up there and get your guy. You can't be certain that the team that's going to jump up ahead of you is going to make us a better deal before you can get on the phone with me. You better do it right now. And again, I think Ryan Poles is going to have his pick of some really nice offers. And at the end of the day, he's going to be able to restock that roster in a big way.
Ryan Poles spoke with Peter King during the NFL Combine, and Peter King published an article in the Monday Morning Quarterback series that he does. I don't even know if it's called the Monday Morning Quarterback anymore, but he basically said that Ryan Poles told him, Poles knows he's getting not only a 2024 first, obviously in the trade back, but also a 2025 first. That
Probably
is incredible value. And that, like you said, if you're only negotiating with one team, you might have to take an offer that's a little less than ideal. It's kind of like in a negotiation, everybody loses, and that's how everybody wins. But
not
when
to
you
mention,
got
Ryan, they're going for a quarterback, and you can charge so much more. Daniel Jeremiah said it during the combine, right? As usually history tells us, there's a 20% premium on that trade offer if you're moving up for a quarterback every time. So they know they can charge just a little bit more.
And that's like if you're negotiating with one team, when that one team that wants to move up knows there's 3 other calls waiting on line 2, 3, and 4 for Ryan Poles to pick up, they got to make their best first offer right off the bat. Otherwise, that next phone call could be the one that blows Ryan Poles away.
That might be all you get, right? Yeah.
Exactly right. It's almost like the housing market. You can't negotiate anymore. You better put your best offer in, or that next buyer's taking it. And that's
it better be cash, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're seeing now with this pick, and it's fantastic. Best case scenario for the Bears, and some other really good scenarios for the Chicago Bears. Some great NFL Combine outcomes occurred over the 4 days of workouts. And I want to start with wide receiver Because if the Bears do trade back, let's say it's to number 8 or number 9, spoiler alert, hang in there, Bears fans. We're doing a mock draft in a few minutes here, and the Bears do trade back in this mock. So you're going to want to stick around for that. If they trade back, let's say to the 8th pick, to the 9th pick, or even let's say there's some rumblings now that the Tennessee Titans at 11 might get in the mix.
Yep.
Wide receiver suddenly could be in play, even if there isn't that elite wide receiver in this year's draft. Ohio State's Jaxon Smith-Njigba had some pretty incredible testing numbers. He didn't run the 40, but his agility scores and short area quickness scores put him back on the radar as a legitimate challenger for wide receiver 1 in this class. And when you think about that Ohio State connection with Justin Fields, even if it isn't like the perfect connection between the two of them, Smith-Njigba was a little younger when Fields was there, but still there is that common link between the two of them. And the Bears need for a guy who could do a little bit of everything at wide receiver. Chase Claypool's on the roster. He should be the alpha, big body downfield threat. Darnell Mooney is a slippery, silky route runner, but his size kind of limits just how physical he can be in the receiving game. And then you have Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who's good height, good body mass, and elite short area quickness. He could end up being that dynamo in the slot, which every young quarterback needs, not only as a bailout option, but as the run after the catch option. What do you make of his combine performance, and what would be a realistic first round range that you think he could go, especially if the Bears end up sliding back? Like, how far would the Bears have to go back for Jaxon Smith-Njigba to be a realistic trade back target?
I mean, honestly, you mentioned going back to 11 with Tennessee. I think that's where that conversation starts, because I think once you look beyond that, you look at Houston at 12, they could take Smith-Njigba right there. I mean, they need that type of receiver as well. I think the interesting thing about the conversation surrounding him is go back a few years, and there was a prospect that the knocks on him were, we're not sure about the straight line speed, and we're not sure if he can play outside the slot. He does his best work in the slot, great route runner, silky smooth, has all the short area quickness, that after the catch, and he does all these things. But, can he be a full-time number 1 wide receiver outside the slot? We're not sure. Is that enough? That guy fell all the way to 22, 23, and he went to the Minnesota Vikings. And I feel like it's a really lofty comparison to make. And I'm not saying they're the same player, but what I'm saying is Justin Jefferson has done pretty well for himself. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, that conversation feels like the same way. Again, going into that draft, Justin Jefferson was not talked about the way we talked about him now. He wasn't expected to be that guy, or the Eagles wouldn't have taken Jalen Reagor instead, the pick before him, right? But that's kind of the conversation we're having about Jaxon Smith-Njigba right now, right? Is, obviously there's some differences. Injured for most of 2022, just had that nagging hamstring injury, couldn't get back to full strength. And I think at some point he kind of realized, hey, I'm just going to shut it down and make sure I'm healthy for moving to the next level. But I mean, if you look at the rest of this receiver class, you and I have talked about it before. There's nobody emerging. Even Quentin Johnson didn't run the 40 either. We kind of wanted to see how explosive he was with that size. Jordan Addison is fast enough, but he's smaller than Njigba is. I just don't see anybody else who's like, that guy's definitely going to be wide receiver 1. He's definitely going to be the first one off the board. And when you don't have that guy, why can't you go back to 2021 film and look at what Jaxon Smith-Njigba did in that offense, even with other mouths to feed, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and he was the guy. He was the star of that group. So I don't see there's any reason he can't be the first receiver off the board. And I feel like anywhere outside the top 10 is where that conversation starts.
And Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the big knock on him coming into the season, and it's why he had like verified preseason 2nd/3rd round grades. I tweeted about this a little bit earlier in the draft cycle, and it wasn't like my personal opinion. It's just relaying information that I've been privy to. NFL scouting services. I'm not talking about like NFL draft websites. I'm talking about services that NFL teams pay big money to subscribe to.
Kind of, you know what they are. You know what they are. Yeah,
exactly. They outline the landscape of the upcoming draft class. And at the start of the season, even after such a dominant year that Jaxon Smith-Njigba had in 2021, he was viewed as a 2nd/3rd round pick because of speed concerns. I don't think we're going to get the straight line speed concern or question answered. I don't think he's going to run a 40 before the draft. But look at like the range of outcomes here. Even if he runs the 40 and he's slow by receiver standards, so was Amon-Ra St. Brown. So was Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp could be a really, really close comp for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, because I don't know if you were at the Senior Bowl. I think you were at the Senior Bowl that year, Luke, that Cooper Kupp was there.
Yep.
We watched him run such quick twitch, short area explosive routes, and he was the most uncoverable wide receiver in Mobile that week. And when he ran his 40 at this Pro Day and Combine, it was underwhelming. Amon-Ra St. Brown at USC, quick twitch, short area guy that created separation. His 40 made him drop down the draft board. The reality
didn't Anquan Bolden run like a 4.8?
Anquan Bolden's the same guy. We're going back a few years, but he's exactly the same type of guy. What we're seeing in the NFL these days is, everybody gets hung up on running straight for 40 yards, but how many wide receivers are making a living running straight down the sideline, beating a defensive back in a straight linear path for 40 yards? Playing wide receiver is so much more nuanced than that in terms of route running and creating separation. And I don't care if you're a 4.6 guy or a 4.3 guy. If you can create that instant separation off the line of scrimmage, a defensive back is going to have a hard time recovering regardless of what you're timed in the 40-yard dash. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the Justin Jefferson comp, it's a dangerous and slippery slope to comp a guy to the offensive player of the year.
I wouldn't say I'm comparing them.
Exactly. No, but the draft
conversation is very similar.
The draft narrative is right there, because Justin Jefferson was not the Justin Jefferson we know now, was not his projection coming out of LSU. So it's a really interesting point that you make, and it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of path Jaxon Smith-Njigba's draft narrative takes from here on out.
Since go back and watch the Rose Bowl. Go back and watch the Rose Bowl against Utah. Clark Phillips III is one of my favorite corners in this draft. I think especially as a nickel slot guy. I know he's undersized. He's not quite as fast. Jaxon Smith-Njigba put on a clinic in that game, and most of the time he was lined up against him and had a really just a bonkers game against a really great prospect. So go back and watch that game and tell me that guy can't be a big playmaker because of straight line speed. That's just not how it works.
So if you think about it, if the Bears trade out of number 1, they trade back to 9 or 11 or even wherever in that range, they pick up multiple future year first rounders, 24 and 25, and add a go-to guy, a Cooper Kupp type stylistically, an Amon-Ra St. Brown stylistic player with their first round pick, building around Justin Fields and strengthening future years draft classes. And now, Luke, we're going to see if you can win a Chicago Bears mock draft. We're going to transition into this now. I don't want to keep Bears fans waiting any longer. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a setup here. Luke is not aware of this before we start this mock draft, because I want to put this spur of the moment. Luke is the USA Today NFL draft expert. We're going to make him prove his expertise, Bears talkers. But before we do, hit the subscribe button. Comment on the video. Tell me what you think of Luke's draft picks. We're going to do a 3-round mock draft, a post-combine mock draft, to see which players did enough to move into the Chicago Bears draft conversation, or if we're going to have much of the same narrative that we had before the combine now. So I'm going to
take Bijan Robinson again just for the
the
reaction.
Fans love that one. Let me tell you.
Oh, it was so much fun.
So here we go. We are once again using the NFL mock draft database.com resource for our mock draft simulation here. And in this mock draft, before I hit start, before the bell goes off, Bears fans and Luke, the Chicago Bears made a trade. They traded down with the Carolina Panthers to the number 9 overall pick. And the terms of the deal where they picked up the number 39 overall in this year's draft, the second round pick. The Carolina Panthers, obviously the number 9, the 39. The Carolina Panthers 2024 first rounder. And yes, Bears fans, Ryan Poles did it. He got their 2025 first round pick too. So it's the 1 to Carolina for the 9, 39, 24-1, 25-1. If that happens, give the man a round of applause. It's a grand slam, walk-off home run, as long as he gets the picks right. And Luke, that's going to be up to you to do that. Let me just get a little. Oh, that doesn't work. That's fantastic. Okay.
There we
Get a
go.
little closer for you and everybody at home to see what's going on here. So we're going to start this mock draft and see what happens with the first couple of picks. And here we go. We're off and running. We're going to reject every trade that comes our way. And now with the number 9 pick, and this is a little bit of a absolute shock that the reason why the Carolina Panthers traded up was conceivably for a quarterback. In this mock draft, C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson are still on the board. And listen, that's crazy right now. You're probably watching this video and saying, what in the world? This is ridiculous. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the NFL draft. Crazy things happen. Guys sit in that green room for a very long time for a reason. So let's see who actually came off the board. It was, wow, Tyree Wilson was the number 1 pick to the Carolina Panthers. Let's go. Let's go, NFL mock draft database. Then Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Will Levis, Miles Murphy, the 5th pick. All right, so we got maybe a little glitch here in the system. Bryce Young drops to 7. Bottom line is here we are. Bears are on the clock at number 9. Obviously, not going.
If this happens, I'm trading back again.
Well, I was going to say that's that, but this is also not a great scenario for the Bears if you're looking just for value of the pick, because there are, you're sitting there at 9, and the Paris Johnson, yes, that's great value, but Quentin Johnson a little early. Joey Porter, don't see it. Peter Skoronski actually just published an article on BearsTalk.com that talked about why the Bears shouldn't shy away from him because he's the most bust-proof player in this draft, in my opinion. Luke, the floor is yours. Where are we going?
I mean, it's easy for me. You and I have had this conversation before about how Skoronski is such a perfect fit for what the Bears need. He can play tackle. He can play guard. You can have the conversations about the arm length and the size, and maybe he has to slide inside the guard. I wouldn't put him there unless I had to. I still think he can play tackle. And again, he played at Northwestern. He played in that area. He knows the cold, deep into the November, December football. He's going to be that guy that can I don't know, like personality wise, just fits the way Chicago Bears fans, I think, want the game to be played, right? He's just going to be a fan favorite immediately with the way he can reset that offensive line. Again, if Jones ends up working out well on the left side, you can play him on the right. If he has to move inside the guard, you're getting an all-pro guard. I think if you're not trading back here and you're sticking and picking at 9, again, the most bust-proof player that you could possibly take here, fills a huge need. And again, just a very pro-ready guy. I'm taking Skoronski. I got no problem with it.
And it's important, Bears fans, to note, in this simulation like this, of course, there could be some wacky picks that come off the board early and kind of make what's available to us in this exercise a little bit unique. For example, 2 quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, this is the same conversation in terms of the player that will be on the board for the Bears, the type of player. Paris Johnson Jr., Peter Skoronski, the wide receiver Quentin Johnson will be in the conversation. You're going to have these guys sitting there at number 9 that are going to rank high on Ryan Pohl's draft board. And I agree with you, Luke. I think Bears fans are going to be happy. Comment on the video below and let me know if you like this pick, number 9 overall. The Bears select Peter Skoronski.
I know it's going to feel boring. But it's not going to be boring when Justin Fields actually has time to sit in the pocket and chuck the ball down the field. And actually have a running game that's consistent because the offensive line's getting the job done. That won't be boring, I promise.
Now the number 39 pick, which is a selection the Bears get in this trade back with the Carolina Panthers. Let's take a look at all the prospects on the board. We got Michael Mayer slipping into the 2nd round, which I think is definitely going to happen. His draft stock seems to have cooled off quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I think with the athleticism of some of the other tight ends in this draft, while Mayer is a good all-around player, he's not. He reminds me actually a lot of Cole Kmet, and I think that's a 2nd-round player. You have Trenton Simpson, a linebacker from Clemson. You got a safety. Jahmyr Gibbs has fallen. You can't do it 2 mocks in a row, Luke. You can't take a running back twice for the Bears in a row. Let's take a look at the wide receivers. Looks like a run of wide receiver obviously may have happened in the 1st round.
Yeah, I'm
not a lot there.
Wide receiver here.
Let's see defensive line. Where are you looking? What do you want me to pull up here?
I want to see the edge. Guys.
Okay, we got a couple of guys. Hey, this guy here, Will McDonald, talk about freaky athlete, a little undersized, but that's a freaky.
Here's what I'm looking at here is because I know I'm picking again at 53, and there's 5 edge guys I love right here. So I think I can get some value later. Is there anything, linebacker, safety we've talked about before? I like the interior guys that are here.
This is a really bad scenario for the Bears.
Yeah,
because
I don't like
if the
it.
draft falls this way, the number 39 pick doesn't have a lot of appeal or value, in my opinion, in terms of the position of need. Interior defensive line, there's no Jalen Carter coming out of the first round when you pick 9th overall. Deron Payne has been tagged as a franchise player. He's off the board. Javon Hargrave possibly could be the belt of the ball for Ryan Poles in free agency to fill the 3 tech. But if he's not the guy, kind of we're hoping you'd get one in the second round. Now, Luke, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yep.
Tommy Adebaware from Northwestern had one of the freakiest NFL combine performances of any player this year, running a 4.49 at 282 pounds. And at the Senior Bowl, he played with outstanding leverage and quickness and power off the snap. And to me, he is tailor-made to be a 3 tech in the NFL. Even though he's listed as an edge player, I don't know why.
Yeah, I was going to say he's an interior guy for me too.
Yeah. So is this a reach at 39? Now, on the mock draft database, these aggregate rankings, number 60, that's going to keep going up, Bears fans. Yeah. Right now, he might be viewed as a number 60 overall guy, but after the combine, when these rankings start recalibrating here over the next couple of weeks, Adebaware is now squarely in the mix to be a late first, early second round pick. You don't find guys with his physical attributes every year. I mean, that's a freaky. I mean, think about it. He's 30 pounds heavier than Derrick Henry, and he's faster. So, I mean, this is like a freaky athlete. I would not be opposed to him wearing Bears blue and orange from the 39th pick. And when you look at who's left on the board, I mean,
the only guy that's jumping out to me is actually at a different position. If you look at the linebacker spot, Trenton Simpson is a guy that I like a lot out of Clemson. And again, he's a guy that's similar to Devin White here in Tampa Bay. His best asset might be the fact that he can come down and rush the passer really, really well in terms of his blitzing ability at the second level. He's got range. He's got athleticism. I know we liked what we saw from Jack Sanborn last year, but you traded away Roquan Smith. You could immediately replace a guy like that on a new 4-year rookie contract. And again, look at the rankings. You're getting probably your best value of any player that's still on the board right now. How do you feel about the need at linebacker? Is it enough to pass up a guy like Adebaware and hope he slides to 53?
Well, I mean, look, there's a chance Adebaware will slide to 53, at least in this simulation. And in terms of the NFL, the real NFL draft, he came into the process as a mid-round guy. So it's a big leap of faith that one really good workout and a strong Senior Bowl performance will move him all the way up several rounds through the process. I think it might happen. But there's also that, like you said, there's a chance he'll be there at 53. Trenton Simpson won't be. And in terms of the Bears' need at linebacker, it's very real. I mean, Jack Sanborn is it. And that guy was an undrafted free agent last year. And I do think he has long-term starter potential. But if you can add a high pedigree player like Simpson, who you mentioned has pass rushing upside, look, Luke, you get paid the big bucks by USA Today to be the expert. Bears talkers are trusting you to make this call. And I don't want the responsibility of getting the hate comments after this mock goes live. So you're in the big chair, my friend. You make the call.
Hey, I love Trenton Simpson. I think he's too versatile. I think he impacts the game on all 3 downs. He's my guy here, value-wise. I know it's not as big of a need as some of those other spots, and I know I'm going to bite myself because by the time we fill those other needs, we're going to get to the 64th pick, and we're not going to be able to fill one. We're going to, there's going to be no wide receiver or no edge or no D-line. We're going to be missing something. We got more needs than picks, but I like the value with Simpson here. He's too much of an impact player.
All right, he's the pick. Bears, and they got an A. NFL mock draft database gives you an A. Fantastic. Well, now we're at number 53. Is he on the board? And Tommy Adebaware is still there. So again, folks, Luke Easterling at Luke Easterling, USA Today's draft guy. He rolls the dice. He played the board like a chess master if he's going to take him here. Like, look, I'm like a regional scout in the war room right now, banging the table for my guy, but this isn't my draft. I'm not the general manager. Luke has to make the decision. Do you think that this is still a little too rich for a player who's dominating the draft process but didn't dominate the college football season? It's a really tough thing that the NFL front offices have to kind of balance. The guys who star in shorts and a t-shirt and in a controlled practice environment, but don't star when the bullets fly for real on the field. A good player, but not a 4'9" guy at 282 pounds. So am I a little overrating him right now? Or like, for example, I mean, Derek Hall is sitting there.
Yeah, I love Derek Hall.
I mean, Derek Hall is a beast. And, if the Bears don't get a Will Anderson in the first round, you talk about an edge rusher consolation prize. You land Derek Hall at number 53 overall here in this mock. That's a pretty good silver medal. So
let's take a look at the wide receivers real quick before we go any further. Big Cedric Tillman fan. I think that there are people who probably think that Jalen Hyatt might not have been the best receiver on his team last year because Cedric Tillman is very, very good, very big, fast, and agile for his size. I think I can get him later, but I'm a big fan of him. Just keep him in mind moving forward. I think I got to go back to the defensive side of the ball here. I like that you're standing up for your guy, but I think there's a better chance I can get Adebaware at 64 than one of these edge guys that I really, really, really love. I'm a big fan of Derek Hall. I'm going to take him here and hope that your guy falls, and hopefully you don't bang the table too hard.
Listen, if Bears talkers grade your mock as generously as the simulator, the artificial intelligence is grading you, you're doing pretty well. You're like a high honor roll drafter right now. But with the 64th pick, and again,
there he is.
Luke is the chess master with Adebaware still on the board at 64. But is he sliding for a reason? This is where I ask myself, am I falling in love with the non-football stuff? The guys who are still on the board, is there like Steve Avila, for example? I mean, this is a plug-and-play starter along the interior of the offensive line. The Bears are most likely going to address either center or guard or both over the next couple of weeks in free agency and in the draft. Steve Avila is going high in some second-round mock drafts. For him to be sitting here in the third round, that's fantastic value. And imagine coming out of a draft class with Peter Skoronski, who you'll start him at right tackle at the beginning of his career, and Steve Avila as another interior offensive line absolute starting quality player. Skoronski, a lot of people don't realize this, was a 4-star recruit at center. So he could even be an all-pro center down the road. And then you just shored up the interior of your offensive line with 2 high-level players. But we keep going down. Andre Carter, forget it. I think that guy's a bust in the making. He might not even get drafted. You heard it here, Luke. He could go undrafted.
That was we filmed our 4-down territory show this morning. That we're recording this on a Monday. Me and Doug Farrar, and that was my pick for like the most disappointing performance at the combine. I mean, a guy
he was brutal. He was just as bad at the Senior Bowl too, by the way.
Rashi
Rice, a wide receiver, he's pretty solid. Nate Tankdell, talk about electrifying ability, but he's again an undersized guy at 165 pounds.
Very small.
So
I think the conversation here is between Adebaware and Avila. And again, when I'm in this kind of conversation, what is my primary responsibility? My primary responsibility is number 1 in the backfield. Okay. It's protecting Justin Fields. It's making life easier for Justin Fields. I love Adebaware. I love the workout he had. I trust Avila's film, and that, like you said, the difference between on-field football evaluation versus a combine performance, and the fact that I've got to protect my investment in that quarterback. I'm going to take the offensive lineman, rebuild that front. Let's go Steve Avila. I've taken him last time. I took him last time too. I'm taking him again.
I mean, look at these grades. I mean, we're talking about a mock draft genius. Bears
Are you not entertained?
You know what's the shocking thing is the first pick was your lowest grade. Peter Skoronski was a B+. And then you went back to back.
They won't be saying that after 5 Pro Bowls.
I think Peter Skoronski, but Ryan Poles today, when he was talking with, or not today, but when the article published today, Poles mentioned something, I think with Albert Breer, about 7 players that he thinks could realistically vie to be the number 1 pick. Now, you got to figure that's the 4 quarterbacks.
Yep.
It's Will Anderson. It's Jalen Carter. And probably, I would imagine he's talking about Tyree Wilson. because that's the other guy that people are saying is going to potentially leapfrog.
He's got that Trayvon Walker.
Exactly
maybe.
right. He could leapfrog Will Anderson as the first edge rusher. And if he's going to leapfrog Will Anderson as the first edge rusher, then that means he's a prospect to be the first overall pick. Right. So Ryan Poles has a pretty generous scouting eye. If he's saying these guys could all be a first overall pick, a guy like Skoronski at number 9, I think Ryan Poles is going to view him as one of his blue players, which to Ryan Poles, that's an elite, must-have guy in the draft class. So I think you did Ryan.
You also
Poles,
think that saying that number is a message to the Panthers that
100%.
if you're going to come up to 1, you're going to have to pay for it because I'm not
doubt
getting
about
any
it.
of my guys, right?
No doubt about it. And I think what you did today, Luke, Ryan Poles would give you an A++. Bears talkers, get in those comments. Let us know what you think about Luke's mock draft. Let us know what you think about Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, all the hot stove conversations about the Chicago Bears trading out of the number 1 pick. Follow Luke on Twitter at Luke Easterling. Go to draftwire.usatoday.com and support all of his work. Follow me on Twitter at Brian Perez NFL. Make sure you go to bearstalk.com for all the latest breaking Chicago Bears news, notes, and analysis. If you're not a Twitter guy, like our Facebook page. That's a real, that resource is growing like by leaps and bounds as well. So if you're still a Facebook user, head over there. Most importantly, Bears fans, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. We want 10,000. That's the new goal. Only you guys can make it happen. And of course, keep coming back for more Bears talk.